Hello. So, a quick reflection today on the subject of curves and lines as extremely broad and generalized ways of differentiating masculine and feminine. And I was thinking here particularly of how lines and curves are used in a lot of advertising, right down to the fonts that might be used in adverts to appeal, respectively, to women or men. So, for example, the curvy fonts, typically sans serif fonts, are used in female advertising, or you'll see them on the covers of women's magazines, for example, um, and also in branding, product branding, beauty products, and the like. Whereas much chunkier, angular, straight lined, direct fonts are used for male advertising, and similarly, not just in the text, in the fonts, but in the design of adverts, the sort of angularity that you will see in different adverts. So this got me thinking about how this enforces perhaps gender stereotypes, the idea of the masculine being angular, and here I'm not talking about sex, I'm talking about the phenomenon of the masculine, which many may say, and I am inclined not to agree fully on this one for sure, based certainly on my own experience, that male bodies typically embody more of the masculine and vice versa for women and the feminine. That those labels around angular, direct, straight to the point, goal oriented, precise, um, directive, all pointing to the masculine, and therefore what we see visually represented in an advert, for example, of the ideas of straight lines. You'll see it in fashions as well, not my fashion, but it's perhaps in the pinstripe suits and so on, and sort of very angular collars on men's shirts, for example, reinforcing this idea. Similarly for women, perhaps softer, rounded collars, and obviously the flow for the physicality of women typically lending itself to the curves of the body. Now, I wonder in my own reflections on what I like about being Anya or imagining myself as Anya, whether this quite crude distinction, we might say, between masculine and feminine, and perhaps some of the associations people might put on it, so softness, gentleness, nurturing with the feminine, the more directive and perhaps aggressive aspects of the masculine. What it is about the look, the visual that appeals to me. And definitely, I think if you have an attraction to feminine beauty, let's call it feminine form, the curves, and want to embody that and to present it, you have a sense of the feminine within and wanting to others to see that, it makes sense that you would want to represent yourself in a form that shows your curves, shall we say. So choice of fashion and so on, and the waviness of hair and so on is all going to play a part in that visual impression. But I think actually, for me, it's not so much about the visual, it is very much about the feeling. And this comes from this deep sense of body dysphoria, that when Anya comes to life for me, there is something very reassuring and comforting in having a sense of having a more curvaceous body than I do in my male form. For someone like me who will cross dress to achieve that, that is easier to achieve with most of the body than with the face, where actually, as it were, erasing or camouflaging the male angular jawbone and so on is a little bit more difficult than it is to use shapewear and false breasts and so on. But where the body is concerned, for me, absolutely. It is a felt sense of presentation. And when I wear that shapewear and so on, or the force press, when I need to satisfy the dysphoria that I'm feeling, it can be very satisfying, even though these are obviously artificial forms. But yes, the visual comes into play as well when I want to be seen by others. So curves and lines, pretty crude, but they play quite a part, I think, in the way we think about ourselves, how we present ourselves sexually, what we're attracted to, whether or not they are good indicators of what is masculine and what is feminine based on the lines of the body or the curves of the body, I'm not so sure.